Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Are you ready to pop your cork? In the left corner at 6'4", 242 pounds, with a record of 45-0, the undisputed.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Will.
Hey, how many bottles of wine have you had?
Well, Will, it's not the wine. I'm just so excited about the podcast.
Yeah, I am too. This is not a boxing match. This is We Know Texas Vino.
So, Will, my friend, we're back and we're having fun. Episode 50. Can you believe it?
I can't believe this is 50 already.
Are you recording?
I am recording. Okay. I actually checked 3 times to make sure the button was pushed.
Well, the funny thing for our listeners is we've had a couple times where he wasn't recording. So now it's like instinctual for me to ask him, hey, are you recording? So I had to do that right out of the gate, right? Well, I am pumped up to be here today. And it's for a couple reasons, Will.
Today's been a good day.
It's been, you've been here since noon or 11 a.m.
Yeah, 11 a.m.
We're getting real close to 8:30 now. So you have definitely been here having fun. I just arrived about an hour ago. But we're out here in Roanoke, Texas, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. And I'm very excited to be here because the other reason is our 50th official episode, Will.
Yes. And you know, I couldn't think of any better way than having these two people on our episode for 50th.
Wow.
Because these two people that here are like one of the biggest influences in the Texas wine industry.
Well, and for people who have been listening to our podcast.
He's probably grown more grapes than anybody else in the state.
Texas. We're going to talk about that, brother. You can't be modest around us.
You can't be modest at all. No, we know you.
Yeah. But it's really cool because I've talked on a few podcasts about people I'm so inspired to meet, and I'm really impressed with people, and I hear names back and forth. But Will, has there been another name, and think about this really maturely for a minute, which will be quite the task. Has there been a name like the Binghams that we've heard more frequently on all of our podcasts?
Bingham is probably the biggest name I've heard on every podcast that we've done.
Well, everyone references them, whether from a farming community or just a great family dynamic or so many different.
It's all the way from buying the grapes to getting advice to making wines to literally everything, even from just talking about life in general. Ernie from Live Happy Lane.
Sure.
Conversation.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, he was here earlier today.
Oh, he was. That's very cool.
And it was funny because I looked at him and I was like, I know that guy from somewhere.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I kept nudging him. Yeah, you already interviewed him.
I love it. I love it.
So, but it's interesting to hear and see the people who has helped out with everything we've been doing so far. So let's go ahead and get into this a little bit. And just, it's our 50th episode. The first 49 have been fun. We have a new character with Andy, the wino guy who's been participating with us. So it's fun to have him on board. He's actually in the establishment tonight as well. Yep.
And so we have a lot of great things happening here. So Will, real quick, where can people reach out to us and give us a 5-star rating? So
you can find us on any podcasting platform out there, and you can also find us on WeKnowTexasVino.wine, which you can also find our streams out there too.
Right.
On top of all that, y'all can also find tickets to our wine event, the We Know Texas Vino wine experience featuring the wino guy.
That's right. And that's coming up here in less than a month. So folks who listen to this podcast and reach out to us on our website, of course, all those places, this is going to be wonderful. We did a live broadcast today. You did most of it, but I'm assuming you probably mentioned that probably about 37 times throughout the day.
Something like that.
Okay, 37. That was our goal. 37 times you mentioned it. So, Will, why don't you go ahead and introduce our beautiful couple here tonight, and let's get after this.
So tonight, we actually have, again, probably the 2 biggest influences of Texas wine industry. And Betty's over here looking at me like, no, we're not. But no, you really are. You have no clue how many people talk about y'all, how wonderful y'all are. And what I know about y'all are wonderful people. Since we started doing this podcast, y'all accepted us into y'all's family.
Compliments across the board.
Compliments. And y'all are just an amazing couple. So we have Betty and Cliff Bingham here sitting here.
Yes. Welcome, you guys. It's really a treat to meet you again. I've heard a lot about you. This is our first time connecting. I know your daughter and son-in-law. I know a lot of the people who are influenced. I know Jen, who works for you guys pretty diligently and enthusiastically. And so I'm really excited to have you guys here. But welcome. And so, Cliff, real quick, you're over there. I just heard you had a knee replacement. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's according to the surgeon, everything went great. According to the therapist, everything went great. And since it's past the first of the year, I'm not going back to rehab because I've got a new deductible, and it's like $200 a whack every time I have to go.
I'll pay for that, sir.
Well,
Yeah, I'll pay for that.
He's still continuing it on his own.
Yeah, but they said I was ready.
That's great.
But nobody's in charge of pain management. So I'm dealing with pain management as I go along.
But he's back to driving and driving the tractor.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
Yeah,
checking on the grapes.
Yeah.
Oh, he's been cutting nods. How do you describe that? Cutting the buds to see if we've had any.
Yeah, we got down to about 3 or 4 degrees a week ago or so.
That, yeah.
And people always said, "Well, how did the freeze affect y'all?" Typically, a freeze in January or February does not affect near as much the grapes on the high plains because they've already acclimated to the winter. The ones that hurt this the most are what people call the Halloween Massacre of 2019 or the May the 3rd of 2013, which is etched on my forehead.
Oh,
Late spring freeze.
It was a rough one, was it?
Yeah, it was that. Yeah. Was that the year that it snowed really big?
Well, it just froze. It got down to 22 degrees on May the 3rd.
Yeah,
2013. Like I said, it's etched on my.
Well, you don't seem like the kind of guy to cry over a crop, but were there a few tears in your eyes when you watched that happen because there's nothing you can do?
Yeah, well, it was. I just remember how I just wanted to forget all of the data that I was collecting at the time because we lost some vines back then. A few. I mean, it was we rebounded after that.
Yeah,
but it was it kind of was a eye opener.
Wow, amazing. Well, we're already kind of deep into some of my questions, which is crazy. And so, Betty, tell us about yourself real quick. You're the troublemaker who keeps this whole family together because obviously Cliff doesn't do it. So what do you do? And tell us about yourself, Betty. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? And then how did this all happen? My goodness.
Yeah, well, my dad was an entomologist, so we always lived at ports of entry, New York, Laredo, El Paso, and then I ended up growing up in Andrews, Texas.
Andrews Air Force Base? No, Andrews. Sorry.
Just Andrews, Texas.
Okay,
Yes, West Texas. And then Cliff and I met when we were both going to Texas Tech University.
Tech. Okay. And so that's your life right there. You just did put your life in 34 seconds.
Well, okay. And then so after that, Cliff and I, after we graduated, he started farming full time, and I've just always helped doing bookkeeping or business accounting or software. When the first home computers came out, I switched us over from double ledger accounting to
I remember double ledger.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you remember Lotus 1, 2, 3. And
don't cuss like that. I'm an IT guy. Don't cuss like that.
Oh, okay. Some of those early things.
Yes.
And then when we switched over to organic crops and got into organic cotton, then we started getting into marketing. Cliff was a founding president of the Texas Organic Cotton Marketing Cooperative, which was another effort that he worked on to help organic farmers, cotton farmers to come together to sell their crop together. And that's been a very successful organization. But
that's cool.
Through that, we started learning more about marketing. And so ever since, I've just been marketing, helping whatever he was growing. Whatever Cliff was growing, I'd help market.
I love about a great woman, because every good man has a great woman helping him out. Okay, every good man. And so, Cliff, did you notice that mostly she talked about you?
Yeah.
Did you notice? Isn't that beautiful? That is so cool. That's so awesome.
Well, because us guys know when we have a good woman, we don't need to talk about us. She talks about us for us.
Well, Betty's a great example of that. So supportive, loving, great family. So we'll get into a little bit. So you, grew up. What was your favorite part around the world, Betty? I mean, you said you've been in a lot of port cities. Outside of Texas, what's that one extraordinary place you've been to?
I don't really remember very many of them. Yeah, because I was so young.
You were pretty young. Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool,
so we kind of, a lot of people will tell you, oh, they got into wine because they traveled the world. We're kind of the opposite extreme. We were farmers to start out, and then we just started learning about wine and that grapes would grow well in our area. So we're not quite as traveled as, some of our other winery friends.
One of the great things, and I'm going to switch gears. I do this a lot. I apologize, but one of the most impressive things about you two and what you've accomplished is your farming background. And we've had a lot of people, different wineries, ownership, who are so grateful for the people who get into the trenches and the fields and do their thing. So, Cliff, tell us about why you're a farmer and some of your great experiences. And then, of course, later we'll talk about some of the things that, future farmers of America, with some of the obstacles. But what are some of your great experiences you've had just being a farmer in Texas?
So beginning, I am a fourth or fifth generation farmer. My great grandfather settled in Terry County in 1901. So farming's been what we do since now. And so that's relatively young to where the high plains of Texas, just like the high plains of Oklahoma and Kansas and Nebraska, were some of the last places that were settled in the United States because of there was not rivers or lakes to speak of. And so that's why the windmill was so important. But anyway, so we farmed there all our life. Cotton was the main thing. Early on, there was cattle. Great grandfather, they did a little bit more than. I'm not an animal person, so we kind of how we got into grapes. Well, backing up a little bit, as Betty mentioned, 30 years ago, a little over, we got into the organic cotton marketing, and that was something Betty and I didn't want to do things. We never wanted to do things the way the normal crowd goes. The normal crowd goes here, and we're usually going to the left of whatever that is.
There's a good adage about the two roads, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and you took the one less traveled.
Yeah, we took it definitely less traveled. So we got into all kinds of different things.
Nice.
We tried a lot of different commodities. We tried blue corn, garbanzo beans, black eyed peas, guar. There's another dozen that sesame.
Wow.
We harvested over 1 million pounds of sesame one year. We probably supplied the world with organic sesame that year.
For a couple of years, because there was no market the next year.
I'm probably being exaggerated.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, I don't care if you exaggerate or not. That's still impressive. That's really cool. So you've done a lot of different things, and so somehow there's this tipping point, right? There's this moment or this magic where you and your family probably sat down. I have this vision of y'all sitting down with the people you respect, and of course, mostly your family, and you said grapes. Who said that first?
Actually, we were making some really nice profit in organic farming. If you think about the buzzword for the last 30 years.
Absolutely.
And so
especially the peanuts.
Oh, yeah. Organic peanuts.
Thank you.
We have patrons over here saying hello to this great couple.
So about 20 years ago, or a little over that, we thought, okay, this has been nice. Where do we invest some of this organic money, especially organic peanuts? We were ringing the bell. We would, the organic cotton board that I was on, we would jokingly, but not jokingly, say, okay, at the end of the business meeting, let's have our organic peanut cartel meeting.
That's awesome.
We literally, there was a few years in there, it was kind of, whatever we decided the price was going to be was what the world market organic peanuts was going to be.
Wow.
I mean, for the most part, we had to be careful how far we pushed them. And if they knew that back then, we'd probably been anti-cartel
right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But he wanted a reasonable price so that it could be an ongoing market.
But it was a very niche market that we were in back then. And it was very profitable. So we had some money to invest into something. And at the same time, as y'all probably will know, the Ogallala Aquifer up on the high plains, and it goes all the way up to Montana. Yeah. That it's depleting. We hope it never totally depletes. But one of our goals was, what can we do to find, what crop can we find that is the best way to use our water? What's the best way to bring in, you would be surprised, but grapes outperforms all the others because the return on the profit per acre inch of water is the goal.
Oh, interesting.
So I can make on a normal year, which there's no such thing as a normal year anymore, but on a normal year I can make 10 times as much profit per acre inch of water as I can organic cotton, even though organic cotton is very profitable, and it's a whole lot more than peanuts because peanuts were such a water hog.
Right.
And although the peanuts is where we made the bulk of our money, it was where we had to get away from it because We didn't
the
have
water table's dropping.
Sure,
we,
right.
we want to be able to farm there for years to come, and our children to be able to farm.
Yeah,
there.
as you
So
just
we
looked
need
at the
to conserve
environment,
the
what was
water.
happening, and you made a very mature, educated decision that in order to make more profit, you just made a shift. You pivoted, and you just said, okay, maybe the grape growing business is something that it would be more not only profitable but sustainable.
Right.
Yes,
right.
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sustainable.
Beautiful.
Let me back up a little bit.
Sure.
So somewhere along the way, Betty and I, we thought, okay, it was the reason we wanted to go left instead of right in all this is what does God want us to do with life? And three main things we thought would be honoring to God would be to be conservative with our water, make the land in better shape than what we found it, and how can we bring economy back to the high plains?
Our local area.
Okay, so before I was organic, my payroll was about $25,000. Once I started doing organic farming, it bumped up to between $100,000 and $150,000.
Okay.
Wow.
My annual pay. And so now that we have a vineyard and a winery and tasting rooms, our payroll is closer to $1.5 million.
Okay.
That's a big jump from $25,000.
Yes,
That is a big jump.
It's a big. So as long as my banker will support what we're doing,
AKA wife.
we are. Yeah, you can laugh.
Reluctantly, you may reluctantly.
I have a really, really, really good banker. They're working fantastic with us, but we're stretching it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to go through the rough years that we've gone through for different reasons. And we'll just leave it at that.
No, I'm
Okay.
I gave him a grin.
Yeah.
I get it.
But I'm extremely thankful for the people who finance our operation, and we've tightened our belts up some. We're seeing, how can we proceed forward in spite of a lot of the difficulties that we're wading through. But the plan for the grapes is better than ever.
Yeah.
I am thrilled. Part of it is just partnering up with people like Ernie. You mentioned him earlier. Ernie sees the vision. He sees the importance of let's grow the grapes where they need to be growing. Let's use good winemakers like our winemaker Sam, and
Marissa.
Marissa.
We were Marissa,
Good Marissa.
Yeah. And let's because they can do a lot of quantity and never sacrifice on quality.
That's beautiful.
And if I think our wine testifies for itself. When I'm visiting with these customers today, and they say, Cliff, of all these wines, I've never found a bad wine. As a matter of fact, every one of these are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a testimony to a lot of what our goals were. They're coming to fruition. And now, unfortunately, one of our major goals, I don't know, was really let's make a lot of money while we're doing it.
That's not a horrible goal.
Yeah, I know it's a great goal, but for some reason, that's not. We have accomplished a certain amount of fame, but fame and fortune don't necessarily go together.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But we have provided a lot of jobs
Yes,
Yeah.
you
for
have.
people
Right.
And
that are interested in the industry.
and what Jen was telling us that y'all did during COVID and all that's amazing, because there's a lot of companies that weren't doing that, and what y'all did for them, that speaks volumes of your character.
Yeah.
And that's what this world is missing, is that character of what y'all did.
And being an entrepreneur itself, I always have frequent debates, or we can call them arguments, with people that, entrepreneurs do create a lot for communities. They create this. We're in a beautiful winery
Absolutely.
today, and it's a place for connectivity, is a fellowship. It's a place to drink good wines. It's all those sort of things. So I'm a huge advocate for folks like you who create so much, and the average everyday person who does not see that. And that's one of the reasons I'm so proud of you guys, because I do see that. I see it in your family. I see it in your wines. It's very cool, Will, to see what they've done just in this little community, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So Cliff, I mean, it's so interesting that what you just described to me, that farming background, that farming energy for sure. When you sell your grapes, Okay, you harvest, you sell your juice, whatever you do there. Are you pretty picky with who has access to that? And the reason I asked that, if I may throw this in there, is I have yet to have a bad wine from anyone who uses your grapes.
I was about to exactly say the same thing.
So I don't know if you're kind of picky about that, or maybe this is Betty's department. Maybe. I mean, you're giving me the look.
Actually, it's Marissa's department.
Marissa's
As our
department.
winery manager, she helps facilitate all of our grape contracts and our juice and all of our contracts.
So literally,
wine.
she helps that decision, and does she put them through a stringent like vetting process?
Well, I would say on the thin years, there's a select. I mean, there's certain ones that we are really, really thankful that they have been with us on the years where they could go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And we're very thankful. There's probably about a dozen of those other wineries that we love selling grapes to. On the thin years, you might not make that list because we don't on the years where we have plenty, like last year, 2023. Then we want to sell to everybody who we feel like has some commitment. We like it when a company, a winery is very committed to Texas grapes. And I'll throw at least one name out, and that's Dave Riley at Dukeman Winery.
Okay.
We are extremely committed to Dave and Dukeman because they're if they cannot buy Texas fruit, they're probably ready to say, let's just call it quits.
So they're devoted to the future and the vision, which we're talking about in a minute, which you two are as well. But that's pretty awesome that you have a few of those great connections, or I guess partnerships, where it's just hands down. Let's do Texas and let's use the Bingham.
Yeah.
family.
And so I kind of list them. There's other ones that kind of fall into that group as well.
Yeah.
But
if you drop your contract, you get dropped to the waiting list the next year.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's valid reason. I mean, that's a.
So if you don't buy your grapes this year, okay, we'll keep you on the waiting list, but not on the main list.
Have you had some folks who are a little like upset that they got dropped, and then the next year they're in desperate need, and so
Chris is pretty good about explaining it to them.
Good.
Okay, you don't have to take your grapes this year, but just
so
recognize you're going to be moved to the waiting list.
That's called a business decision, by the way.
The amateurs are going to be above your list now.
Well, I think that's awesome, you guys. It's so cool. So, so you've been growing these grapes. You're doing a lot of different things. I'm interested, Betty. You had mentioned early in this podcast about the peanuts, right? Is this like Jimmy Carter era, a little after? I mean, did you have some competition?
This is after
Carter. Okay.
Now, the history of peanuts is complicated enough. We couldn't address it all right now.
Okay. All right.
But growing peanuts on the high plains, the first few years, it was a benefit if you could get allotments. They had allotments that you had to buy some,
which is maybe from the Jimmy Carter.
Oh, right. That might be from
right.
that era.
It was, but that was a good 15, 20 years after his.
Right. I just meant kind of his regime, his philosophy on that. I've read a little bit about that. Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's kind of but eventually, and so then anything you didn't have allotments, you were at risk of just selling it for whatever contract. Well, at about that time, the organic market came around, and so we were able to find some contracts because people wanted, you can do organic peanuts, and so we were able to start getting some contracts where some of our neighbors were not into. So we were probably some of the very first ones who didn't have allotments in Terry County to get into peanuts because we had contract, which straight.
Right. Wow, that could be a whole podcast. We know Texas peanuts, right?
Yeah.
Well, then we have to talk about organic wheat. Because I love it that he grows organic wheat, which he then brings home to me, and I keep in buckets, and then I can grind, and then I can make my own bread. So it's fun to.
That sounds authentic. That's legit.
So we eat whole wheat bread, but I ground the wheat, I made the bread, and he grew the wheat.
That sounds so great. My mouth is watering thinking about that with a little glass of wine.
Sometime later this year, we are going to come up in that area.
Yeah.
So we're going to expect. We're going to expect
I'll make you some homemade bread.
I'd like to see the whole process. I'd help. I'd help with the process. I'm in on that.
I'm already about to cry now because
you're very emotional. Very emotional about wheat, organic wheat. That's awesome.
So I have a question, Cliff, and this is a rumor that I've been hearing, and I need to dispel this rumor. There's a rumor that you could grow anything that you put your hands on. I mean,
No.
come on. I mean, everybody says you threw some vines out there and you grew it.
We've heard that a couple times.
But then also heard this rumor that you could taste the dirt and knew if it was nutrient or not.
No.
That's not. Okay, that rumor's not true.
That's an old tale.
Well, maybe I could smell it.
Okay.
Man, and you can smell the organisms that you can tell when the dirt is healthy. Yeah. And so some of our soil has been rotated with organic farming for nearly 30 years now. Now it's not just the fact that it's organic, but it's rotating with high residue crops that break down and they create more organic matter into the soil, like a hay grazer or something that's not going to consume cotton after cotton after cotton is one of the worst things you can do to the soil. And so that was one of the reasons we love the idea of going to organic farming 30 years ago, is because I always wanted to, before we were organic, I wanted to be a good conservationist. People say, oh, you must be an environmentalist. I'm not an environmentalist. I'm a conservationist.
Big difference, isn't it?
I think there's a big difference.
There is a difference.
And I would say even a lot of my conventional growers who do use some chemical, they're conservationists too. Not all of them are, but some of them are. And by the way, our vineyards are not organic. We do use some chemical in the vineyards. But
they were actually put onto soil that was certified organic, and then they were organic for 4 years, certified.
Yeah.
And then we decided at the time the wineries weren't interested in that at all.
Okay.
And they weren't willing to pay a little premium, which you would need to.
Sure.
So now we still go by a lot of the same practices, but they're not certified organic like our row crops are, where we grow wheat. And
wow. Yeah, Will, this whole thing could evolve into like a 7-part series here with these guys. There's so many, I'm just, questions are going through my mind for sure. But Betty, let's pick on you for a minute. So, because we picked on Cliff, but so rate kind of like your life. You have a beautiful family, but you obviously God, your family. Is farming next on that list, or what would you consider like? So tell me kind of your life.
Maybe
definitely
City
the children.
Chiefs.
No, he's teasing. I think for both of us, it's our children. I mean, we spent 30 years raising our 11 children.
Oh, well.
And
I did not know you had 11 children.
We became empty nesters 2 years ago. After we've turned 62.
Wow. 11
So they
kiddos.
range in age from almost 40 to down to 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Holy cow.
We lived out in the country, and so I like to call it individualized education.
Yes.
But we did homeschooling.
Sure.
That way we could meet our kids' needs.
Yeah.
The local school didn't have a strings program, but I could drive to Lubbock, once a week, and they could have string lessons at the university. And
I saw 2 of your kids playing 2 nights. Is that correct? A little violin. And that's beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. Marissa was playing the cello. And Sierra was playing the violin.
Pretty cool.
I think that's something that's missing from our youth nowadays, is that kind of talent. I honestly, I miss playing my saxophone. I used to be really great at playing saxophone.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have the saxophone no more, and I haven't played it since I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, people used to ask Cliff, well, did you have that many children because you wanted a football team or basketball team? He said, well, I thought a symphony would be really fun.
I love that answer.
An orchestra, yeah.
An orchestra.
Because we hear the football, the basketball, the baseball team, but orchestra, how beautiful is that? And I'm a big fan of the orchestra, so my wife and I frequently attend around the world. And it's just fantastic. So that's really cool. So you had your kids in extracurricular activities, but a homeschooling environment. So were you the teacher? Were you the headmaster?
Yes, we took advantage of, co-ops and, lots of other situations. The kids played on a homeschool tennis team, so they got to play against, the other schools, and so they had lots of socialization.
Well, and one of the cool Americana things I can think of is, did they have chores?
Most definitely.
Yes, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, yes.
Part of the family, right? It's a family responsibility. I think that's wonderful. So
was there punishment? Go out there, and take a hoe, and start hoeing out a field.
Well, I don't know about punishment, but once Daniel said that he didn't want to practice his viola, and I told him, well, we just read about Carver. And in his book, he talked about how character building is done through manual labor and stuff. So I told Daniel that practicing your viola is character building. Okay. And you could also, just like Carver mopped floors in the cafeteria, you can mop the kitchen floor and clean the bathrooms for us. So this character building if
Choices.
you clean, or it's character building if you practice your viola. So which way would we need character building? So which way would you like to do your character building?
Well, it sounds like you are an extremely pleasant lady, and you seem just so beautiful and amazing to me right now. But surely a little bit of that, I'm sure you did it with that calm disposition, but surely a little bit of that was character building. It's like, here's your choices, young man. You make the choice. We'll honor that, but there are two choices. I imagine Dad was over there giving him the look at who the dad look probably. So that's good.
I wish I would have gotten that because that common collective look, like, okay, you can either do this or you can do that. You can either do this, whap, or you can do that.
Oh,
one of those.
Well, I wasn't always calm, but he did choose to go. He did choose to go practice his viola.
That's awesome.
You feel so. You said kids, number one, so you feel like they've been incredibly enhanced and they've had opportunities that probably most kids, especially city kids, don't have. And I've met one of your children. I've met Marissa, and she's extremely talented, well-spoken, very intelligent, a total leader, right? She's in the leadership role.
Yes, most definitely.
And so
she's wonderful.
So is she an example of your children? And do you think because of educational opportunity, learning, living on the farm, experiencing the things in Lubbock and going and enjoying these different opportunities, has that built character in your children? Do you think that's something that is directly resulted from your decision to be homeschool and to raise those children right?
Oh, yeah. You see a lot of character development. Now, are they all the same? There's no two peas in the pod the same. I mean, they're all extremely, but we felt like a lot of the character that God gave them was enhanced by their environment they were raised in.
They all had different learning styles.
Sure, they do.
Like I wasn't pushy for, I had one child learn to read at 3, and then I had another child who in 3rd grade wasn't reading anything, Right. His mother even asked him, my mother asked him, I won't say his name, but, how do you know so much? You don't even read very well. And he said, well, my mom reads to me a whole lot. And so
Audible.
I learned a lot.
Yeah,
well, anyway, the same kid was reading novels 2 years later.
Wow.
I mean,
wow.
No pictures, thick novels.
Legit novels,
So he just needed that timing to wait till he was ready.
Yep.
And okay, here's how you read. Here's phonics, and he just took off. So
well, coming from education a little bit, my wife was a speech pathologist. It's probably my greatest takeaway from those years, and you learned it early on as a teacher, that every person does learn differently, and you have to recognize that. And the best educators I've seen in my life are the ones who recognize that early and give opportunities for them to learn that way, whether it's audible or whether it's hands-on or whatever it is. And great teachers like yourself have done that. Good job. You're a teacher. You're an educator.
So with all that teaching there, so how many people do y'all have come out to y'all's vineyard and you teach them how to grow grapes?
Mentorship.
Yeah, there's been a few. There's been a few that, like from tech, will come up, but they're usually mentoring in the winery. It's usually winery. We've had a couple that I can recall that came out, and that is from a formal, but as far as a real informal, I'm extremely busy, way too busy, and I don't mentor. I wish I was half the teacher that my dad was. Teaching came very natural, just showing me how to be a good farmer, and I love that. And I'm not quite the teacher that he was, for sure. And if there's one thing I would regret, it would be not stopping and slowing down, because I'm an entrepreneur. Produce, and sometimes that producing kind of gets in the way of, okay, what else does God want me to do along the way? And I'm kind of get the priorities out of order sometimes.
Well, we've heard great stories about your sense of humor and how you connect with people and all the beautiful relationships you build and the people who admire you. So I think maybe you did it subconsciously, but it seems like you've inspired a lot of people, young man. So I would not be too tough on yourself. It seems like you've got a pretty good following, sir.
Well, I'm thankful for that, because I do want to share what I've been given.
Well, it is a little hard when you run into people at trade shows and things. They want the answer, and I'm always saying, wait, you need to ask that of 5 different people, because every winery, they even start from different positions. Some people want to start with the vineyard, and some people want to start with the winery, and some people want to start with the the tasting room, the event center, and so the answers are different.
Yeah.
So I always say, hey, this is what we do, but you need to ask about 5 other people too to figure out what's the answer for you.
Well, in this wine industry, you have to start at different spots. You can't just start at the vineyard. You can't start at the winery. You can't start at the production room. You can't tasting room. You got to look at all of them at the exact same time, and you got to figure out, okay, where am I going to start at? And how am I going to do this? And then how I'm going to move forward? Because we were actually having this conversation earlier. Sometimes if you want to have a vineyard, you can't make wine to sell in your winery until at least 3 years minimal. So what do you have to do? Well, if you want to start making wines to sell in your tasting room, you got to go outside and buy grapes from another established vineyard. Then you can make your wines, get them ahead, and then while your grapevines are growing, then you already have wine you're being selling. You're already moving along. Now you got grapes coming along. Now you got your vineyard established. Now you can go into your winery. Now you can get your own tasting room and stuff like that.
So we started with the vineyard and then went to the large winery. And so that's why we're opening another tasting room here in Roanoke. We have one in High and one in Grapevine and now one in Roanoke because we're needing more outlet to bring our great High Plains AVA wines to our friends.
So y'all are exception to that rule because y'all had established vineyard. Y'all were selling to other people.
Right.
Then y'all started y'all's winery. You saw all this extra stuff and you're like, we're going to have to start doing something with this.
I think y'all are reading my notes because you're stealing my questions from me, all right? Don't say, how dare you?
This might steal the next one, though. One of them is, so how and why did we start the winery? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So we already talked about why we started the grapes, or somewhat. I didn't really finish that one.
Go ahead.
So Jet Wilmoth, a fellow grape grower on the High Plains, he and I were serving on the Soil and Water Conservation District Board at the same time. And when we were starting to think, okay, what do we want to do with this nest egg that we built from the organic peanuts, particularly? What do you want? And Jet just basically said, Cliff, you might, and he had already been growing for about a year or two. He said, you might want to consider grapes. And so we considered grapes, and that's kind of
that's how it happened.
And he introduced us to Neil and Janice Newsom, and they are pioneers.
Yeah, we know the name. Yeah. I would love to learn more about them.
Yeah, they're amazing.
And to me, for somebody still functioning in the industry, Neil to me is that person who was just whatever it took to he wants so bad for the Texas industry to succeed. And he's just given and given and given. He and Janice both. And what they did for Betty and I is we got in, it's just priceless and something we would never be able to repay them all that they did for us. I mean,
Right. And that happens a lot. I mean, how can I repay the people who inspired me in my life as well? It's just, how do you do that?
Everything from, we'd go to the Hill Country together and they'd introduce us to winery people.
Sure.
And one of the first loads of grapes that we were going to take down to the Hill Country on the back of a pickup. I mean, this is really small loads way back when, a couple of, anyway, Cliff called up Neil and said, Neil, do you have a pickup that I can borrow? Because I'm going to need 2 trucks. And he said, I'll be there tomorrow morning, with my pickup truck and my trailer, and we'll go down together.
Nice.
And I think I figured there was like 36 hours that Neil and I did not get any sleep, from working through the night to hauling the next day to delivering to getting back at some crazy hour. I think both of us, it was something under 40 hours, but it was definitely through 2 nights. I mean, it was crazy.
But entrepreneurs do that. They do what it takes to be successful.
So if you look at the price of coffee for the hours right there, it went up.
On that run right there. Right. Absolutely.
So sometime you guys should go to Neil Newsom's Grape Day.
We should do that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They do that as a fundraiser. Plains, Texas.
Plains.
Okay, Plains, Texas. Okay, I was like, are you missing some words there?
Yeah, and they have a tasting room now, and some of them are in the Houston area. I've stayed so busy,
Comfort,
I don't know.
And then they have a new one in Trumbull.
Okay. We'll look that up.
Tomball. So like it starts with a T and a ball and
there you go.
So if you're talking about, so you've evolved now, things are starting to happen, and you're having maybe just an opportunity to expand, right? And I'm sure Betty, you talked about that earlier too. So tell us about the wineries and how that came to fruition.
So we're just blowing and going. Things are going great. We're selling to a lot as grape growers, not winemakers. and we're selling to a lot of wineries. And then one day, one of the wineries, and I won't name who, the owners of that time are not involved anymore. They went back to the West Coast. I'll leave that and kind of take it from there. But they said, "Oh yeah, by the way, Cliff, we don't need your 100 tons of fruit." And so we said, "Okay, what do we do now?" Fortunately, that year we found other people to buy, and we were able to sell our crop. But the kids said, "Okay," I said, "I'm not sure what to do." And they said, "Well, let's start making our own wine."
Family meeting? Was that a family meeting? Or
somewhat.
Okay.
And I basically said, "Fine, you go ahead. My boat is loaded in the vineyard." And so
Daniel and Marissa took all the viticulture and enology courses at Tech. Daniel did his through the agriculture department, and so that's what his degree's in. Marissa did a fine arts degree, which is like a double major, and so half was all the viticulture and enology classes, and the other half was cello performance.
Okay, yeah. That's beautiful.
That's awesome.
And then so now you have 3 locations. I mean, that didn't happen overnight. What was the first one like? Were you excited or a little scared to kind of get that going?
We were, because we're farmers, and retail is something we've never done, and so dealing with the public. And so I will always say, and until this day, I'll agree with my statement, we've made jumps along the way. We were just traditional cotton farmers. Then we made the jump of starting to grow organic, and it's predominantly organic cotton and other. So that was a jump. And then the next jump was we jumped into grapes. And that was a jump because all of a sudden we're growing a perennial. And perennials are not near as forgiving as annuals, where you plow up at the end of the year and you plant and you see the next year and you keep going. So you better know what you're doing. You're working with the perennial grape. And so then that's a step. And then the next step was starting to make our own wine. And so all of a sudden, we're not just farmers, we're making this product. Okay. So we're starting to go vertical. Okay. And so then the next thing was starting tasting rooms. Out of all of that, tasting rooms still scare me the most.
Well, it's a risk, right? It's a legitimate risk.
Because you're dealing with the public, and it's not like selling cotton that goes to Nike or Patagonia or something. And and that's been fun, and that was a good marketing learning curve, as well as in the Texas Organic Cotton Marketing Group. We learned to deal directly with buyers. So that was a good step, and kind of a preparation for Betty and I being involved in that you're dealing directly with but this is much more direct, where you're dealing with each customer, each person out there.
But then you have a day like today that makes it all worthwhile. Sure. When you spend all afternoon visiting with club members that you've had for years, and one's arguing with software is wrong. We really joined a year before it says we did, and one woman made that tatting over in that frame for us as just a gift.
Nice.
To say
that's the first thing I saw when I walked in here. That was cool.
Getting your Roanoke location. After you have a day where you have so many people throughout the day saying, your wine is the best wine, or really good wine, and we love having you around. And then
I'm gonna go back to my original point then, Betty and Cliff, and that is that you kind of like, without even knowing it, have paid it forward, right? You've kind of given to the community. And so of course people are grateful to both you and your family, because you provided so much. I'm enjoying this experience. So you don't even know me, and here you are providing an uplifting, incredible experience for me to have. So that is a beautiful compliment to who you two are. Earlier I typed in the word modesty. You two are way too modest. You have accomplished significant things, and so maybe at home you're patting each other on the back and look at us. I don't know, but I have a suspicion you don't. You're probably more of just like, hey, let's just continue and charge the hill and make sure we're doing what we're doing. It's the right thing to do. So you're doing a great job there. So if I don't mind just shifting gears, unless you have some other things you want to talk about in that regard, but you're in the tasting rooms now, things are going great. So what's the next step for the Bingham dynasty? What's going on here?
Man, did you say Bingham Dynasty? Can we make almost make that like a Duck Dynasty, but make a Bingham Dynasty episode?
and I'm not going to keep it. If they want to steal it, they can have it. So
well, it's after a year trying to get the Roanoke location, we need to just rest for a few days, and then we'll decide what's next.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, and to the point, it hadn't been a bed of roses, and we've had some tough years. So quite honestly, We don't want to change much other than we would love our debt to asset ratio be a whole lot smaller.
Okay, very
right?
good. Right. And so the tough years, this past year was a great year.
Right.
And how do you guys as entrepreneurs, but farmers also, how do you celebrate that? Or you just keep it real even keeled, knowing you know next year could be the battle? Or how does that work for a farmer?
Well, in this industry, one surplus can create a problem. Yes, we sold quite a few grapes, but our tanks are full.
Yeah.
So we need to market a whole lot more. And
we'll have
that
wine
said,
for ourselves, plus we'll have wine
Right,
for
yeah,
others
for sure.
that are starting out.
in the cotton industry, you have a floor, a government floor of the price. You do not have that with grapes.
Okay.
And if you produce 25% of normal, really, really low for 2 or 3 years, and then all of a sudden you're back to 120 or 130%, there's a huge difference of productivity. And you gotta start looking for a lot of avenues of where to move whether it's grapes, juice, bulk or finished wine,
Quality finished wine.
Yeah, that's right.
I like to call it.
or go ahead and make into shiners, and so now all of a sudden we are we're pursuing every avenue that we can to sell.
Marissa told you about our project with HEB.
Yes.
The wine that's going to be coming out in
Very cool.
February.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a dual purpose. It's kind of our entry into HEB. We had our label designer design a label that we're going to use exclusively for any wines that are sold in HEB. Kind of has their colors, but it still has our branding in it as well. And it's a special wine for us because it's going to be a cooperative effort with HEB and our distributors, Serendipity and ourselves. We're all three going to donate some money from the proceeds of that wine to the Blake Eddy Scholarship Fund, which we started with the Hill Country Winery Association is taking care of that for us. But we created that in honor of our son.
That's awesome.
Blake Eddy, who was very involved in our winery and our vineyards, and we lost him in a COVID wave.
Okay.
At age 30.
Yeah, we heard about that. And we were very sorry for that, of course. But what you're doing to honor him and to honor your family is just so respectful.
Creating that scholarship for people wanting to study viticulture and enology.
Well,
that's very cool.
And when Marissa was actually telling about it earlier today, I even said if HEB will allow me to put it on our website, I will put a link from our website to their website. Indicating that as well.
Support that for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's only available at HEB. We have some bottles up for display at our different wineries, but it's only available at HEB.
That's a big partnership. That's pretty awesome. Look out. That's amazing. So as we kind of get towards nearing the end of this podcast, which has been extraordinary, I really want you guys to talk from your heart a little bit for sure. But, I just think of your family. And so are all of your children involved in this industry? Or some? Can you kind of give me the dynamics of what your family's doing to support this amazing effort?
Well, some of them are involved and some of them aren't. And we've always encouraged them to do what God's leading them to do. And so some have been apart and then left and come back, and vice versa. Daniel, who was our winemaker, decided that God was leading him to go to, he's becoming a certified counselor. So he's up at Covenant Theological Seminary in St. Louis.
Wow.
Awesome.
And that's after winning the saddle at Houston.
Yeah.
So
he and Marissa made the wine that won the saddle, and then that's like, hey, go where you need to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
and then
go ahead.
Yeah, but several of our children are still involved. Kyle does administrative work, and then he put up those shelves over there, and he made all the tables in here, and he made the outdoor furniture out there. So he does everything from working with our offsite accountant to manual, creation of things.
Does a lot with their CBD products as well.
Right. I read about that. Yeah.
So I do have a question to ask you. are y'all willing to adopt a new child?
Oh, okay.
Well,
I mean, he's 46 years old.
yeah, but Jen's got first.
Jen-
yeah,
I
we
figured
kinda-
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, Jen's
Marissa's our,
theater, so,
Marissa's our winery manager and winemaker. And
Sure, absolutely.
Sierra, I don't know if you met Sierra, but
I
she
met
was
her.
here playing
She
the
was on the
violin.
violin.
Yeah, I saw
She
her
graduated from Tech in a degree in agriculture communication.
Wow.
So she could go off and do something somewhere else if she wanted to. But
You've given your kids opportunities to go thrive, haven't you?
That's awesome.
Say.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, my last question before I open it up to both of you is why, pray tell, would someone become a farmer? I literally wrote down the word why.
I mean, that's
don't get me wrong.
You know-
I respect it.
well, I
It's
should tell
hard
this
work.
little short story. Is
Okay, go
that
ahead.
when we were engaged? Okay, we met at Tech.
Yeah.
He was getting his degree in business, and I was getting my. How fast can I get out in 3.5 years? Okay. Well, I started in
That's
chemical
awesome.
engineering,
Oh.
and I did fine,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
I just, anyway, it wasn't what I wanted to do. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, we sat down with his parents when we were engaged, and his parents tried to talk me out. They tried to talk me into talking him out of farming.
Interesting.
They said, hey, he's getting his degree. You need to encourage him to go do something different. And I just looked at him and said, he loves farming. He
I can
wants
tell.
to farm, and I want to be a part of that.
That's so cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's to answer the question, it's I don't know of a good reason other than a passion.
Yeah.
There's a good friend of mine who is on the local cotton gin board, and he did not grow up on a farm, but he had such a passion. And there's every once in a while he's critiqued for not having his farm as pretty as some of the others around, but I know he farms and he makes it work. I mean, and he's like everybody else. It's tough because it's not easy farming,
Right.
whatever you're doing right now. And for whatever reason, it seems like it's never been very easy for farmers.
Right.
And yet, if the passion's not there, there's no way you can farm.
Yeah. So both feet in, huh? Both feet in. You got to do it. So the reason I brought that up is I have so much admiration for it. But of all the emotions we get from winemakers and ownership, of all the ones I can think of outside of just the relationships they've built with their communities, it probably goes back to even like a Michael Cook getting emotional about the farming, the thing that people don't think about when they're drinking a bottle of wine. Probably the greatest emotions that I felt personally from interviewing now hundreds of people is the farmers. And people are grateful for that. We're grateful for that. So I just want to give you both kudos on that. It was kind of a trick question, but really it comes down to just what you're doing. Because you think about it, you guys have something going on here, but a lot of these wineries around the state could not function without this family.
Yep.
It wouldn't happen in Texas.
Again, as I said at the very beginning of this podcast here, we hear nothing but good stuff that comes from y'all. Not only from the fruit that y'all provide, but from sometimes life advice. I mean, we've heard a lot of people say that sometimes I'm struggling with some things, and from the stories that I've heard, Cliff, you're like, what are you struggling with? And all of a sudden, next thing you know, your total life story.
See, Cliff is the mentor. He just doesn't know it yet.
He is, and
he's just modest.
Yeah, modest.
And
He's humble.
But honestly, I'm just barely know y'all, but I feel part of y'all's family a little bit. Because y'all have accepted us for what we're trying to do as well.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yes,
thank you for that.
And we are trying to showcase what y'all are doing, because there's a lot of people in this world who don't understand.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is get that out there a little bit more.
Well, it starts with families like this.
Yes.
It starts there. It doesn't end there. I mean, it's also going to end because they're multi-talented, but it starts there. And that's the beauty of what we're trying to accomplish here.
I have to mention Nathan. Nathan, our son, he's out in the vineyard every day, and he's out on the farm taking care of it while we're here.
While you're here celebrating, he's working
so
hard.
While y'all are drinking wine, he's working.
He's creating it.
Yeah. So I'm trying to run through my mind which kids have I forgotten to mention that are working for the business.
I can tell you're proud, Betty. I tell you, you're very proud. So, Betty, wrap it up from your heart and soul. What do you want to share with our listeners around the world?
We're doing this from 30 different countries.
Is it 30 now?
Yes, 30.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow. Yeah, you're putting me on the spot.
Yeah,
Well,
only in 30 countries. Don't worry.
we just hope that wine can be a complement to people's lives, something to draw people together, to create community, to add enjoyment to celebrations and holidays. And that's what we like to encourage.
Modest. I love you. You're amazing. So I'm going to adopt you.
No.
Okay, so very good. And then Cliff, from your heart, buddy, I can tell you're a inspired man. Go for it.
Well, a couple of things. Back to the last question about why farm. Grand openings like this, one of the jobs I get to do is just be the dirt farmer. I just get to be the celebrity. And when I'm constantly just going around just thanking people, and very, very, very sincerely, people are saying, "No, Cliff, thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing."
Yes,
and
sir.
If that's what motivates you to, I mean, you got to start with that passion to farm. But if you need a shot in the arm,
That's right.
You just be around some customers like that, like we have. We have a fantastic wine club membership, and I'm very, very thankful for that. And it's and then the other thing is God has shown Betty and I so much. I think back to where I was a meat and tater redneck West Texas farm boy.
All right.
And then I was introduced to this redhead.
Pretty little girl.
Yeah. And my life has been turned upside down.
Sure.
For the better.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some days, I mean, you think about, I went from being a cotton farmer to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
I mean, and things like, wow, I guess Jesus made the best wine there ever was. Not only is it okay to drink.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't okay. Okay. There's a whole lot of things. But no, I mean, it's probably one of the greatest things that, that's a blessing from God.
Yeah.
And I'm just constantly saying, okay, God, what next?
Yeah. Yep. That's
what
amazing.
next?
Yeah.
But I'm thankful for every step of the way of what God has done for us.
I wish more people had your earnest opinions and earnest thoughts and the love for people, love for your family, love for your country, and all those sort of things. I think that's something missing for sure. But that's why I am inspired, right? You get inspired being around people who are successful and winners. You guys are winners, and I want to be around winners my whole life. So thanks for sharing that. I'm really grateful for that. So, well, good. Anything else, you two? I mean, this is about you. It's about you and what you've accomplished.
This is all about y'all. This whole day is about y'all.
Yeah. So congratulations on this opening as well.
Yes,
so thankful
on all the great things you're doing. I've been to your place down in Fredericksburg. For sure, Grapevine. I slept there a couple nights. No, that's true. But I love your wines. I've never had anything bad. I love your daughter is amazing. Your staff phenomenal. They've always been caring and open armed, right?
Yes.
And I kind of now understand where that comes from. You've created that culture of winning and just acceptance and just get it done. So good for you guys.
Well, Malcolm and Will, thank y'all. We appreciate.
Yes, thank you for having us on your podcast. We appreciate
so folks,
it.
go visit and just continue to support this family, what they're trying to accomplish for sure. All the Bingham wineries around the state, 3 of them now, and get there, have fun, and talk about the cool things happening. So, well, let's real quick hit our sponsors. I'm going to touch on them real quick. Texas Wine Club. We're really excited about the partnership with them. They're amazing. Their application is ridiculously awesome. Really proud of that group down there. Texas Wine Lover app, which is also Texas Wine Lover.
Website
try this again. Texas Wine Club, which is also very good.
We're on their
this
app.
Is English. This is English.
All four of our locations are on their app.
For sure. Absolutely. We love
Texas
that guy.
Wine Lover app.
Yep. And then Texas Wine Club, celebrating all the wines in Texas. I'm sure the Binghams have been very much a part of that. If not, they will be soon, I'm sure.
Yep.
We also love flywithwine.com. In fact, your suitcase are going to use that pretty soon. Go travel the world and then take wine with you.
You know about the Fly with Wine?
I've seen that on your.
Yeah. Suitcase that carries a case of wine. Yeah.
Why not take a case with you, bring another case home. So when we go visit this family, we'll bring them something, probably wines, and then we'll bring home a bunch of their wines. So we'll ask first, what do you guys need over there in West Texas? And then finally, the wino guy. We love Andy. He's a wine enthusiast. We're doing our wine experience here pretty soon on the 21st of February. So we just love that guy. He's really a big part of what we're trying to accomplish here. So thank you to the Bingham Family Vineyards, to, of course, this great couple here, Cliff and Betty. You guys are amazing. And so take away real quick, Will, what do you think about this couple? They're trouble.
It's amazing because every episode that we do, somebody always makes a comment about God.
True.
And they thank God first, because without thanking Him first and praising Him first, everything else underneath doesn't matter.
That's true. Vertical alignment, right? You got to figure that out. Yeah. And so that's your takeaway?
That is my takeaway.
That's good. That's a great takeaway. My takeaway is, again, back to being inspired. There's been a few times in my life that I've literally been inspired, and I knew I would be today. There's just something about the dynamics of your family and just meeting Marissa early on and just knowing what you guys are accomplishing and hearing the ringtone, the Bingham, and I'm like, what's going on there? Something big. So good for you, good for Texas, good for what's happening with Texas, and you're a big part of that. So that's my takeaway. So quotes, buddy. I did 2 quotes this week, and I made them simple just for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I've been blowing his mind. He actually had to get a little help. I know a doctor
I had to
help
pull
him
up
out.
the source.
Yeah, and so I got some easy ones this week for it because I thought of you, Will. This is for Will. So the first one is, I've cut down on my drinking. Now I only have 1 glass of wine before going to bed. Last night I went to bed 4 times. So that was decent. So simple and to the point, right? And then my last one is, do you know that when you open a bottle of wine, you use 14 muscles? Fitness is my passion. So anyway, I love it. So anyway, We Know Texas Vino, episode 50, Will, which is so cool.
Yes.
So we're just excited about all the experiences we had. We're going to have 50 more here this year, which is going to be great. The Bingham's a big part of that. I'm sure we'll revisit with them here very soon. But from We Know Texas Vino, this is Michael.
That's Will.
Cheers.